First, Jess?
Jess was having some problems with her audio.
Yeah.
Well, we could go from here and see how Jessica is able to come on.
Okay. You ready?
All set.
All right.
Great. Welcome, everyone. I apologize for the delayed start. Thank you for your patience. I'm Ann Clemente, the chairperson. I call the regular meeting of the Brunswick Zoning Board of Appeals for Monday, July 20th, 2020 to order. At this time, please recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance.
Thank you. Mr. Polito, would you kindly explain the procedure for using the Zoom platform?
Head on mute. Sorry about that. This is Pat Polito, and Governor Andrew Cuomo's executive orders have authorized us to hold our regular meetings over the internet. To facilitate that this runs smoothly and with as little technological issues as possible, we're asking for the following. When not speaking, please mute your audio. And if I hear people with the audio open in the background, I'll actually go and mute you so it'll cut down. When you're speaking, please state your name. So we do have a transcript, so the person doing the transcript will know who's talking. So when you start talking, state your name. For the public hearing, you have to state your name and your address, okay? You're encouraged to use headphones, in particular headphones with a microphone. It cuts back on the feedback. If there's two or more of you watching the meeting in the same room on different devices, make sure only one person's audio is on when you're speaking. Otherwise, there's a real loud feedback there. Those are the rules for tonight.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Polito, for being our moderator for tonight's meeting. At the retirement of Martin Steinbach, the members of the Zoning Board of Appeals thank him for his many years of service as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. His breadth of knowledge, insight, and input to the Zoning Board of Appeals proceedings will be greatly missed. We wish him well. And the ZBA welcomes new member, Jessica Charette. We look forward to your many years of productive service. Mr. Golden, would you kindly call roll of the Zoning Board members?
Roll call for members. This is Chuck Golden, Town of Brunswick Building Department, doing the roll call for the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for July 20th. Member Charette. I see her, and I will put her down as...
I'm present.
As present. Member Shover. I saw Member Shover as well. There you are.
Can you hear me, Chuck?
Yes, I can, Bill. Member Schmidt.
Present.
Member Kern.
Present.
And Chairperson Clemente.
Present. Thank you very much, Mr. Golden. We'll review the agenda as posted on the town website. To begin, we have Messier, area variance, public hearing. Alisea, area variance, public hearing. Green Fung, area variance, public hearing. Rashid, area variance. Blue Sky Towers, use variance. The first item of business on the agenda is Messier public hearing, the 2 area variances. The applicant seeks approval to renovate an existing single-family home at this location. 1 Shakespeare Avenue, requiring a front lot line setback variance and also a rear yard setback variance. We will open the public hearing on this application. Mr. Gilchrist, would you kindly read the public hearing posting?
Attorney Gilchrist here, and I do want to confirm on the record, because this will affect the public hearing notice. Is there one area variance required for this application, or are there 2 area variances required? Because the notice listed only the front line setback variance.
Right?
This is Chuck from the building department. I don't mean to interrupt Chairperson Clancy, but what I found when I was reviewing that after further review, even though there was not a defined setback in the rear, which is supposed to be 30 foot for an R9, when I used the scale and scaled out that portion of the drawing, it was, I believe, 22 feet rather than 30. So that is something I picked up on that.
Hey, Chuck, this is Joe Messia here. Was that to the shed or was that to the actual building?
That was to the actual structure.
Attorney Gilchrist here. This does raise an issue then regarding the legality of the public hearing notice. The public hearing notice did indicate the public hearing was for a front lot line setback variance only. That does raise a legal infirmity regarding the propriety, the adequacy of the public hearing notice. When that issue comes up in the future, if any kind of amendment to the application or addition to the application comes up, we should have that addressed immediately. This public hearing notice was published, but again, it speaks only to the front lot line setback variance. If there's also a rear lot line setback variance that's required, my legal advice to the board would be this does need to be renoticed and properly noticed for both a front line and a rear line setback variance.
So to do this in parts, if we were to take this in parts, you would not advise that. So tonight we would do the front lot line setback and then at another month do the rear.
Well, my concern there, Attorney Gilchrist here, my concern there would raise the issue of segmentation, of segmenting an action into various parts. When the action in front of you has both variances, they should be considered together.
Right. 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 Mr. Golden, is there anything you would want to add at this time? Otherwise, we would accept the advice of Attorney Gilchrist and unfortunately would have to renotice this to include variances that are being sought by the applicant.
In further review.
Chuck, I'm sorry, this is Joe Messia again. Do you have the map with you? Can you take another peek at that map?
I did, Mr. Messia, and
there's two
you are
sheds
correct that it is to the shed, and the shed looks attached to the structure.
That shed is actually no longer there.
Okay, then do you add 8'2" to your rear setback, and you come in at 30 foot 4 or 30 foot 2 inches? So that a rear setback is no longer needed.
Awesome.
This was in photo number 3, Joe. That's what we're looking at. That's
right.
Yeah, that looks like it deserves to be taken out of there. So
Okay.
that has the rear setback to be
No.
above. Yes.
Chuck, before you continue, Attorney Gilchrist, just so we'll confirm on the record, based on the building department's review of the application record, in your opinion, the opinion of the building department, a rear setback variance is not required for the proposed use?
This is Chuck from the building department, and that is correct, Attorney Gilchrist, that with that shed removed, then the rear line setback is above 30 feet, which is the requirement.
And given that, Chairperson Clementi, you can move forward with your public hearing on the front lot line setback variance. And if you'd like me to proceed, I will read the public hearing notice.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Zoning Board of Appeals at 6 p.m. on Monday, July 20th, 2020, concerning the application for area variance submitted by Joseph Messia for property located at 1 Shafter Avenue. Applicant seeks approval to renovate an existing single-family home at this location, requiring a front lot line setback variance. Pursuant to the governor's executive orders, the town of Brunswick will be holding the July 2020 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting over the internet, accessible to the general public through the Zoom video conferencing platform. Direction on participating in the July 20 remote Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, as well as copies of the area variance application for public inspection, will be available on the Town of Brunswick website. All interested persons will be heard at the public hearing. This was published in the Troy Record, placed on the town signboard, posted on the town website, and mailed to owners of properties located within 300 feet of the project site.
Thank you, Mr. Gilchrist. And just for everyone's benefit, the Record is the official newspaper of the municipality, a newspaper with a paid subscription. Mr. Messier, are there any changes or additions to the application materials other than that rear shed has been removed?
This is Joe Messia. No.
Thank you. Chairperson Clementi. Mr. Messier, would you kindly present a brief overview of the project?
This is simply a property that's been vacant for some time before I purchased it, and I plan to renovate it top to bottom.
Okay, thank you. The Zoning Board will now open the floor for receipt of public comment. Speakers, please identify yourselves. Is anyone who would like to speak for this application, you're welcome to do so. I'm sorry, I thought I heard something, but perhaps I did not. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak against this project? You're welcome to do so now. Chuck, are there any written comments on this application that could be read by the board into the record?
There are no comments that were received at the building department, either written or from walk-in folks.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the zoning board members?
This is Member Curran. I have no questions.
Chairperson Clementi, thank you, Member Curran. Hearing no public comment, I would make a motion to close the public hearing. Would any member—
Excuse me.
Pardon?
My name is Dora Patnod, and I live at 15 Autumn Lane. And I was just
welcome.
curious. Hi, thank you. I live within 300 feet, I guess, of this, where this is going to be. And I was just curious on how high it was going to be, and if they were going to take down any high trees for our view to see it from 15 Autumn Lane.
Well, thank you for your question. Mr. Messier, could you address those concerns?
Certainly, this is Joe Messia here. There's no plans to remove any large trees or build any tall structures. It's simply just to renovate the property.
Okay, thank you. Just curious. Thank you.
Do you have any other concerns at this time?
No, not until I maybe hear other people's from my area. I don't as yet.
All right. So I'll ask again, if there are any comments that would like to be made for or against this application? Okay, hearing no further public comment, I make a motion to close the public hearing. Would any member second?
Member Schmidt, I'll second it.
Thank you, Member Schmidt. This is Chairman Clementi. All in favor, we'll do a roll call for voting. Member Schmidt made the motion. Member Shover,
Member Shover, aye.
Member Curran,
Member Curran, aye.
Member Charette.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried. Public hearing is closed. The zoning board members are now prepared to deliberate and act on the application. As a residential application seeking an area variance, it's a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. No further determination is required. The zoning board members will review the factors for consideration of an area variance. For the benefit of Member Charette and anyone else, the discussion of the factors creates a record for the basis of a decision by the zoning board. We'll take number 1, or explain how no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood, nor detriment to nearby properties created by granting this area variance. We go out and say that there'll be no undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, nor a detriment to nearby properties by granting the front setback variance, as some neighboring properties have front porches and decks and some do not. We can look at then the second factor, explain why the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
This is Member Curran. This is an existing structure, and he was originally proposing to remove the porch, but he's going to leave the porch. So he's not changing what was existing.
All right, I think as we learned from the applications, it's a rehab of a building that's in need of it, in a lovely neighborhood that would enjoy the addition of a livable home. Thank you, Member Curran. Chairperson Clementi, describe whether the area variance is substantial.
Member Shover, it is substantial, but all these houses, again, in these neighborhoods were built too close to the lot line, and putting a new porch on there, it's not going to make much difference. It's already closer than the lot line than the law requires.
Thank you, Member Shover. I would agree. You'd say that the required is 30 feet, the proposed is 22. And taking into consideration that this is a pre-existing non-conforming structure. Then we're asked to explain how the proposed area variance will not have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. And I know the proposed area variance would not have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood district. Quite the opposite. It would improve the conditions by improving the neighborhood. And then we're asked to explain whether the difficulty is self-created. As already been noted, this is a pre-existing non-conforming structure. I would also like to add that Rensselaer County Bureau of Economic Development has acted and determined that the proposed project does not have a major impact on county plans and that local consideration shall prevail. Are there any further deliberations at this time? So after considering the balance between the benefit to the applicant as a weighed against any detriment to the community, and we did have that public comment, at large or the neighborhood in particular, the neighbor, would a member make a motion to grant or not grant the requested variance?
Member Schmidt, I'd make a motion to grant the variance.
Member Shover, I'll second that.
Thank you. To vote all in favor, we'll do a roll call. Member Schmidt made the motion. Member Shover made the second. Member Curran.
Member Curran, I approve.
Thank you. Member Charette.
I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. As well as I, Chairperson Clementi. So the area variance is granted. I want to say one thing that's interesting about this neighborhood of Brunswick. In the surveying notes, it's noted that it was surveyed back in 1896 by a G.D. Baltimore. That G.D. Baltimore was the first African-American to earn a bachelor's degree from RPI in civil engineering in 1881. His name is Baltimore. He, as a landscape engineer, he was most notable for his contribution in laying out Troy's Prospect Park. And his name, he was named after two prominent abolitionists, Henry Highland Garnet and Frederick Douglass. So just to add that. Mr. Messier, would you kindly please continue the coordinated work that you're doing with the building department on this project? Thank you very much. It's a great project. I look forward to seeing its completion. Good luck.
Joe Messier, thank you.
Thank you.
Chairperson Clementi,
Yes.
Attorney Gilchrist here. When you do the roll call votes, and it hasn't had any legal effect thus far, despite the members making and seconding the motions, they should participate in the vote as well.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll do that. Okay, our second item of business on the agenda is Pamela Alicea at 24 Goodman Avenue. The applicant seeks approval to construct a new pool on the property at this location, resulting in a front line setback variance. 60 feet is required, 33 feet is proposed. We will open the public hearing on this application. Mr. Gilchrist, would you kindly read the notice of public hearing, please?
Yes, Attorney Gilchrist. Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Zoning Board of Appeals at 6:15 p.m. on Monday, July 20th, 2020, concerning the application for area variance submitted by Pamela Alicea for property located at 24 Goodman Avenue. Applicant seeks approval to construct a new pool on property at this location, resulting in a front lot line setback variance. Pursuant to the governor's executive orders, the town of Brunswick will be holding the July 20th, 2020 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting over the internet, accessible to the general public through the Zoom video conferencing platform. Direction on participating in the July 20 remote Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, as well as copies of the area variance application for public inspection, will be available on the town of Brunswick website. All interested persons will be heard at the public hearing. This was published in the Troy Record, placed on the town signboard, posted on the town website, and mailed to owners of properties located within 300 feet of the project site.
Thank you, Mr. Gilchrist. Ms. Alicea, are there any changes or additions to the application materials?
No, not at all.
Okay, thank you. Would you kindly present a brief overview of the project?
I just, I guess I'm trying to get a pool that I used to have an existing pool in. but because of the epidemic, there was only 2 pools available. So I took that and didn't realize I had to do the variance and do all this. So I'm doing the steps now as needed. And I would appreciate my pool. It's been so hot, I'm sure you understand. And it's a pretty quiet neighborhood and we all get along. So I'm sure whatever you guys say will be accepted.
All right, thank you for that. And you're right, it has been a hot summer. The zoning board will now open the floor for receipt of public comment. Just a reminder, speakers, please identify yourselves. At this time, if there's anyone who would like to speak for the application or against, you're invited to do so. Chuck, are there any written comments on this application?
This is Chuck from the building department. No, there has not been any written comments received by the building department on this application. The application, as Ms. Alicia described, was a former 20-foot pool that sat in there, and they purchased a pool of 28 feet, thereby causing the encroachment into the setback.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. Are there any questions from the zoning board members?
Member Shover, I have no questions.
Thank you, Member Schover.
Member Schmidt, I have no
I have
questions.
no questions.
Member Charette, I have no questions.
All right, thank you very much. Well, hearing no public comment, I make a motion to close the public hearing. Would a member second?
Member Schmidt, I'll second.
Thank you. We'll, all in favor, will roll call. Member Schmidt?
Aye.
Member Schover?
Member Shover, aye.
Member Curran?
Aye.
Member Charette?
Member Charette, aye.
Thank you. And the Chairperson Clementi votes in favor of closing the public hearing. The zoning board members are now prepared to deliberate and act on the application. I'm sorry about that. As a residential application seeking an area variance, it's a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. No further seeker determination is required. The zoning board members will review the factors for consideration of an area variance. We'll begin by the first. We're asked to explain how no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood, nor detriment to nearby properties by granting this area variance. I'd just like to start by saying it's a lovely, well-maintained yard with a proposed above-ground pool.
Thank you.
Not change the character of the neighborhood, as neighboring properties also have above-ground pools.
Member Schmidt, you can see where the old pool was, so really there isn't any change there.
Yeah, thank you. Then we're asked to explain why the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant pursue other than the area variance. And then, I think we take into consideration the positioning of the house, the driveway, the leach field, makes it feasible for only this location for the proposed project.
Member Shover, I would agree with that.
Then we're asked to describe whether the requested area variance is substantial. Again, stating that the required is 60 feet and proposed is 33 feet. I'd say the numbers seem substantial. However, the pool fits nicely into the proposed location. The yard is surrounded by a chain link fence and lovely landscaping. And we're asked to see if there's any detriment to the environmental or physical conditions of the neighborhood. And I would say no, there would be no impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood by granting this area variance. And then finally, to explain whether the difficulty is self-created. The consideration is relevant, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Yes, we could kind of say that it is self-created, but having access to a pool in the applicant's own yard would bring a great health and well-being benefit to the applicant. Are there any further deliberations? All right, after considering the balance between the benefit to the applicant as weighed against any detriment to the community at large or neighborhood in particular, would a member make a motion to grant the requested variance or not grant, or grant with conditions?
Member Schover, I'll make a motion to grant the proposed variance, the variance as proposed.
Right.
Member Schmidt, I'll second that.
Thank you, Member Schmidt. All in favor will roll call vote. Member Schmidt,
Aye.
Member Schover,
Member Schover, aye.
Member Curran,
Member Curran, aye.
thank you. Member Charette,
Member Charette, aye.
and Member Chairperson Clementi, aye. So the area variance is granted with the front line setback. Ms. Alicea, I encourage you to continue the coordination with the building department on this project. Thank you very much. Good luck with your pool. Enjoy the summer.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you who helped. This pool's really going to help me with my therapy and things. And thank you for the time. And I can't wait to start the pool. God bless you all. Thank you. Stay cool.
Thank you. Have a wonderful summer. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Okay, our next item of business on the agenda is 42 Humstead Green Fung, seeking 2 variances. The applicant seeks approval to construct a garage, which requires a variance for the building size as well as building height for an accessory structure at this location. We will open the public hearing on this application. Mr. Gilchrist, would you kindly read the public hearing posting?
Yes, Attorney Gilchrist. Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Zoning Board of Appeals at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, July 20, 2020, concerning the application for area variance submitted by Van Fung and Denise Breen for property located at 42 Humeston Avenue. Applicant seeks approval to construct a garage which requires a variance for building size as well as building height for an accessory structure at this location. Pursuant to the governor's executive orders, the town of Brunswick will be holding the July 20, 2020 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting over the internet, accessible to the general public through the Zoom video conferencing platform. Direction on participating in July 20 remote Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, as well as copies of the area variance application for public inspection, will be available on the Town of Brunswick website. All interested persons will be heard at the public hearing. This was published in the Troy Record, placed on the town signboard, posted on the town website, and mailed to owners of all properties located within 300 feet of the project site.
Thank you, Attorney Gilchrist. Mr. Fung or Ms. Breen, are there any changes or additions to the application materials?
This is Denise. No, there's not.
Okay, thank you. Denise, would you kindly present a brief overview of the project?
We'd like to build a garage on the property, the size of which is necessary because of our desire to put solar panels on the south-facing roof, and as well as to allow us to house a small camper and a small boat and get those off the yard, as well as to be able to house our electric cars and be able to charge them via solar energy.
Thank you. Thanks for that presentation. Well, now the zoning board will open the floor for receipt of public comment. Ask the speakers to identify yourselves. Thank you. If there is anyone who would like to speak for this application, you're welcome to do so.
Hi, it's Anthony Mazzarello. Can you hear me?
Will you kindly repeat your name one time, please?
My name is Anthony Mazzarello. I live on 50 Hummerston Avenue. The property line is it coincided with the Breen and Vaughan line.
Thank you. Welcome.
So I have a couple questions. In reference, this is a huge project. I have no problem with this project. My only concern is that it is a professionally done, proper landscaping, and proper water drainage to the property, because of winter, spring, and there is a lot of water. There's a lot of wetland down there. So I just want to make sure, because in the last 5 years, the property that Ms. Brina designed, there's a lot of stuff in the yard, and it's like it's considering, you know, an eyesore for the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against this application? In the meantime, I'll ask Mr. Golden of the building department if he's in receipt of any written comments.
This is Chuck from the building department. There have been no written comments on this project.
Thank you. Are there any questions from zoning board members?
Member Shover, I have no questions.
Member Charette, I have no questions.
Member Curran, I do have a question. We had talked about the loft before, and I just was wondering what the purpose or what the use of the loft area is going to be.
This is Denise. The loft, we plan to just be as extra storage. Since we had so much height there, we figured we'd put a ceiling there and then be able to utilize that for storage if necessary.
Okay, and did you determine where the location of the, because you're putting a bathroom in?
This is Denise. The location of what? I'm sorry?
The bathroom. There's supposed to be a bathroom in there also?
This is Van Fong, 42 Hummerston. It's going to be on the garage floor, the ground floor. We have not made a final, determination on it yet, but it will be on the garage floor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is Anthony Mazzarello again. May I ask another question?
Yes, you may.
In reference to the plan that was submitted, there was no bathroom on the floor. I reviewed the plan in very detail onto this application. So there is no plumbing done whatsoever on the plan that was submitted. And again, I have a concern on the loft too. I want to make sure later on it does not become as an apartment in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
It is a huge building. It's a 2,600 square feet.
Mm-hmm. Would the applicants like to speak to the issue of, in the future, using it as an apartment, and then also I guess if the building department also wants to add their thoughts to that, or perhaps Attorney Gilchrist could then explain how a change in use would be made in regards to the conversion into living quarters. So to the applicants, would you kindly address the concerns of Ms. Antoinette?
This is Denise. Yeah, we had no plan to make that an apartment. It's not part of the plans, and it's not in there at all for us.
Thank you.
What about the bathroom? I haven't seen no plan on the bathroom.
Well, this is Van Fong, 42 Hummerston. The bathroom is for when we are working in the garage. It would make sense to use the bathroom. It would be a half bathroom. There will be, and instead of going back to the main houses to use the bathroom. Also, when we work in the garage, it will be dusty or dirty. It would be better to just use the bathroom in the garage.
So this is Anthony again. I'm sorry. Because this is a huge project, I want to make sure where in the plan the bathroom was located, because I did not see it. There was no plan for storage at all into the planning.
So if I understand you correctly, you're wondering where on the plans is it laid out for a bathroom and storage?
In the architect plan, I did not see no drainage and no plumbing storage connected to the bathroom. So because it needs to go, the sewer needs to come from the city into the property. I did not see that on the planning. I'm sorry.
I understand your question. Could possibly the applicants address that? And then I'd like, if perhaps the building department representative could add to that as well.
Vaughn, do you want to go first?
I think. Do you want to
No, you go ahead.
talk on that? This is Denise. Sorry, we didn't know where exactly we wanted to put the bathroom. I believe that's why it wasn't put on the plans officially. But we do have plans to improve drainage around our property because we do get a lot of water. We're at the kind of in a valley on this street, so we have some plans to try to keep that. To allow the property to be drier, and hopefully the plumbing into the building wouldn't be a problem either.
This is Van Fong, 42 Hummerston. We are going to be investing a good amount of, this is a large investment for us. We are going to make it beautiful as much as we can, and also the landscaping too. This is our forever home, and we're doing everything to make the neighborhood beautiful. And that's part of the reason why we're constructing the garage so that we can put our boats and vehicles away out of sight.
And this is
did not answer go ahead, Chuck. Go ahead.
And this is Chuck from the building department, and we can't issue a building permit until I get a set of plans for the bathroom, including what the size of the discharge line is going to be and where you're going to be running the vent. This is a fairly open area, so you won't have any problem in running the vent up, but the vent size and the location of where you're going to be putting it up through the roof. My advice to you in that one of your key edicts in this is to have solar, is try to get the vent out somewhere along a rake end where it's not going to impede the placement of the solar collectors. But as it stands now, I just need to have a set of plans that'll include the bathroom before there's any approval.
Thank you, Mr. Golden, for that explanation. I also have a question for the applicants. Who will be doing this construction?
Who will be doing it? You want to answer?
We have spoken to 2 or 3 general contractors. One of them could be my neighbor. I believe Mr. Goldman will know him. Mr. Myron, up the street from us, he's one of the possible builder, and he's up on the list. But we have not made a decision yet until we obtain the approval on the variance.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dora Patnott, and I live at 15 Autumn Lane. And I was the one that spoke too early about the tree line and everything. I was just wondering, seeing as they have to get another proposal or do another thing because of their bathroom, are they going to have another phone meeting again? Are you going to have another phone meeting again?
Right. So why we're having this now, it's an appeal hearing to determine whether or not an area variance could be granted. So at the conclusion of this, the area variance would be either granted or not granted, and the public hearing would end. So most likely, this would be the only time to voice your concerns. Am I answering your question?
Okay, what I wanted to know is, I live behind them, you know, kind of far enough behind them, but close enough that I'm part of this. And I'm just wondering if that tree line is going to be taken down, or where I'm going to be able to see this, you know, or is the tree line going to stay up where I won't be able to see this? Because behind us, there's already 2 other houses there that are abandoned. And I mean, nobody is really taking care of that property, and one house is actually falling apart, falling down.
Right. So this is Chairperson Clementi. I'm looking at the scale, and are you saying that you are in the direct rear of this proposed project?
I'm behind them. I'm in the cul-de-sac at Autumn Lane, where I can see all the houses and down at Hummingston, where you turn to go down where they are. If they remove their tree line there, I will be able to see probably the back of their property as well. I'm already seeing 3 houses that are in my sight line that are already abandoned down in Hummingston.
Right. So just to clarify, you're not exactly on either, you're not boarding this property, but you have a sight line to see.
No, it's kind of like on the side of me, but I'd be able to see it if they took down the tree line.
Right. Would the applicants like to address that concern?
This is Denise. We don't have plans to take down any trees to be able to do this.
So when I did a site visit, I didn't see many mature trees in this area. So yeah, I would have to concur with that there are no trees in the area where this project is being proposed. There were trees around it, but not directly on it.
Okay.
This is Chuck from the building department. You have a property of at 38 Hummiston that has a fairly substantial tree line, and that's actually one parcel away from the Breen property. So that should also offer a visual block. I do know what you're talking about regarding the properties down on Hummiston, and I am surprised that those properties have not been scooped up in the craze for renovation, but I do know about those derelict properties that are down there on that, and I can see how you see those from your line of sight, but I don't expect there will be an issue with this building one parcel away from yours.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Yeah, how you doing? I'm Jim Martin, 47 Hummiston Avenue.
Nice to meet you.
I have a few questions. The property here, I see in your other variances, you had commentary about the character of the neighborhood, what it would do to the character of the neighborhood, what it would do to property values. I'd like to hear some commentary on that from the building department.
This is Chuck from the building department, and I would really love to have a garage of this size. But I would say if you put an accessory structure up that has solar on it as well, it would be an enhancement to your to property values and values around it. in that the a garage is whether it's an asset or a or not, I guess, is in the eye of the beholder. That would be more answered by our appraising department, which I know is going to be more than happy to gain the revenue from this building.
Chairperson Clementi, Attorney Gilchrist here, if I can.
Yes.
Let's kind of refocus the board that the two pending area variance applications are for building size as well as building height. Note that an accessory structure is an allowable use in the zoning district. It does meet the otherwise area and bulk regulations for setbacks. And the issue that was raised specifically about property values can be relevant in your determination on the area variance applications in terms of impact to surrounding properties or creating a detriment to the neighborhood. Specific issue of property values is not one of your listed criteria for the area variance, although it can be relevant on the issue of impact to the community as a whole and the neighborhood in particular. So I wanted to focus the board. The comments of the building department on value are just that opinion. There's no proof in the record, as far as I know, of any expert proof on impact to property values, and that the only relevance to your inquiry on the area variance standards are whether the board feels that this proposed accessory structure would have a detrimental impact on the community at large or the neighborhood in particular.
Thank you for that refocusing. Are there any other comments from the public that have not already been stated? Hearing no further public comment, I would make a motion to close the public hearing. Would any member second?
This is Member Charette. I'll second that.
Thank you. We'll roll call voting to close the public hearing. Member Schmidt.
Aye.
Member Shover.
Member Shover, aye.
Member Curran.
Member Curran, aye.
Member Charette.
Member Charette, aye.
And I, as Chairperson Clementi. The public hearing portion of the application is closed. The zoning board members are prepared to deliberate and act on the application. As a residential application seeking an area variance, it's a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. No further secret determination is required. Zoning board members will review the factors of consideration of an area variance. We're asked to explain how no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood, nor a detriment to nearby properties created by granting the area variance. Well, I'll just begin by saying, in general, other properties in the neighborhood have garages. In particular, the adjoining neighbor has 2 sheds in view of the applicant's project. In fact, there would be a benefit to the neighbors as the various vehicles would be stored out of view. There'd be no undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties. And we're asked to explain why the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. I think if you look at the topography of the lot, it dictates the best position to locate this 60 by 32 foot garage. Number 3, we're asked to describe whether the requested area variance is substantial. The building height, for example, 20 feet is required, 23.25 is being proposed.
Attorney Gilchrist here. Mr. Golden, it would be good for the zoning board members for you to again review the building height allowable for accessory structures in this zoning district, as well as the size, the allowable size under the zoning law.
This is Chuck from the building department. The maximum allowed in all, and actually in all districts, it's just not this one, for a accessory structure is 1,500 square foot in size and 20 foot in height. And Ms. Green is requesting a 1,920 square foot, and that is footprint. I'm sorry, I'm muted again. I'm sorry, I'm not muted. This is Chuck again. 1,920 square foot footprint of the detached garage, but actual square footage and floor area internal, including the loft, comes out to be 2,978.4 square foot, with a overall height of, where's my height? I believe it was 23 and a quarter. Was it not, Chairperson Curran?
This is Chairperson Clementi. I have that at correct.
Clementi, I'm sorry.
23.25.
Yeah. So in review, a 2978.4 square foot, and that includes the internal square footage of the loft area, 1,920 square foot footprint, as well as a 23.5 foot height.
Yes. Thank you for that clarification. And moving on, we're asked to explain how the proposed area variance will not have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. Just want to note that the issue of drainage has been brought up.
This is Chuck again from the building department. I did run that by Bill Bradley, who heads the water department and also has the latest on the wetland areas, and there were no wetland impacted areas in this. He did note seasonally, as well as Antoinette also noted how wet it is at the bottom of that hill. Excuse me, and I believe that is why they're citing it farther up that hill.
Yeah. Thank you for the addition into the record with Mr. Bradley's report. I would say the applicants have a well-drawn plan for the project. There would not be an increase in pollution. There would be no proposed ill effect on the physical or environmental conditions. They spoke about hiring a contractor after this variance if they get this variance approved or not. And working with conjunction with the building department. So drainage around the site would be addressed at that time. We're asked to explain whether the difficulty is self-created. Consideration is relevant, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. And I would just want to remark, sure, it's self-created. However, the proposed garage would be a great benefit to the applicants for storing their sailboat, work trailer, their Airstream, yard machines, which would make room in their front yard and driveway. there any further deliberations at this time? The board is asked then to consider the balance between the benefit to the applicant as weighed against any detriment to the community at large or the neighborhood in particular. So again, the requested area variances are for building size as well as building height for an accessory structure.
Chairperson Clementi, Attorney Gilchrist, based on the discussion during the board's deliberations, the board, if inclined to move forward and grant the variance, may want to consider a few conditions that would include the stormwater runoff from the structure, given its variance for increased size and potential increased stormwater runoff, be reviewed by the building department during the building permit application process, and also make it clear on the record and conditioned to any grant of an area variance that the building is not approved at this point. Well, I won't even say at this point. The application is for building size and building height only. No further approvals are allowed. The building cannot be used as an accessory apartment or an additional living quarter. If that is indeed intended in the future, that will require further municipal application and review by the town.
Thank you, Mr. Gilchrist. Could you kindly review again your idea for the drainage?
With respect to the drainage, given that the variance would allow for an increased building size and potential for increased stormwater runoff, that an appropriate drainage plan for the structure be reviewed by the building department. And I would also add it be advisable by the water department during the building permit application process.
Great, thank you. I also want to read into the record the action by the Rensselaer County Bureau of Economic Development and Planning. They reviewed and determined that the proposal does not have a major impact on county plans and that local consideration shall prevail. There were just two notes. It is a sizable solar array for the intention of powering 2 electric cars. And if the second floor is intended for residential use, this should be mentioned in the application. We brought up this issue and it was determined by the applicants that it would not be used for residential use. And like Attorney Gilchrist just mentioned, that could be part of the conditions for granting the area variance. So again, for the zoning board members, this applicant is seeking 2 variances. Building size proposed is 2,978 square feet, where the maximum allowed is 1,500 square feet. Building height, the second variance proposed is 23.25 feet. Max allowed is 20 feet.
Schmidt, I think if we are going to approve this, we should consider another condition that there not be any kitchen or bedrooms allowed to be built in this structure.
Mm-hmm. And kitchen nor bedrooms. Right, right. And I think Attorney Gilchrist kind of laid that way by saying that it cannot be used as additional living quarters or an apartment. So either way that you say it, I think it does get that message across. Thank you. So then, Chairperson Clementi, I would make a motion that considering between the benefit to the applicant as well against any detriment to the community at large or the neighborhood in particular, to grant the requested area variances with conditions. The first concerning the issue of drainage on the property, and that an appropriate plan for the structure be reviewed by the building department and the water department at the time of the building process. And a second condition would be that there cannot be not be used an additional living quarter or apartment, taking into consideration Member Schmidt's suggestion, not there to be a kitchen nor bedrooms. I think that was two. Was there a third? Anyone think of a third condition that we discussed? Any of the members?
Bathroom.
I'm sorry.
The bathroom line.
Thank you. And mentioning the drainage, and I guess we could also put into the sewer and line that would be reviewed by the building department at the time of the building permit process. And then just a reminder that the public hearing has been closed. So we have a motion. We have a motion with two conditions. Are there any other thoughts by the zoning board members? Otherwise, the chairperson would ask for a second.
Member Schmidt, I second.
Thank you. We'll call a roll call vote. Member Schmidt? Member Schmidt? I see that. All right. Member Shover?
Member Shover, aye.
Thank you. Member Curran?
Member Curran, aye.
Thank you. Member Charette?
Member Charette, aye.
Thank you. So the area variances are granted for building size as well as building height of an accessory structure at 42 Homestead Avenue. Mr. Fung and Ms. Breen just ask you to continue the work in coordination with the building department on this project. Thank you.
This is Denise. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Martha.
Okay, our next item of business on the agenda is Rashid. Located at 793 Pauling Ave. This applicant proposes to build a car sales office and garage that will not meet the rear and side setbacks on an undersized lot, seeking two variances, rear and left side. To note, the public hearing portion of this application is closed. For the public's knowledge, the applicant is awaiting the transcripts of the June 15th, 2020 public hearing to address the public comments. Please know that when they are ready, it will be made available on the town website. Mr. Daskin, thank you for joining us. Would you like to present to the board your information?
Yes, Mark Danskin. At the end of the last meeting, we were asked to submit a legal position on the encroachment. and my client's attorney, James Blendell, I believe, spoke with Attorney Gilchrist. And as I understand it, it was a position of the board cannot grant a variance that the proposed structure would encroach. I checked with the architects and my client, and I added a note, and I apologize, I didn't submit it early enough. I believe Mr. Blendell forwarded the revised map to Mr. Gilchrist, but I was going to submit it when I submitted I thought I'd had the minutes, to be honest with you. That's all. But anyways, I went out and reshot the corner of the encroachment because it is much more visible now, much more accessible, and found it to be 7 inches. I measured the width of the concrete retaining wall and found it to be 15 inches. I verified with the architect and my client that their proposal is to build a new 8-inch concrete wall within, i.e. on the west side, on the Pauling Avenue side of the existing 15-inch concrete wall. That wall would have to abut, yeah, right there. That wall would have to abut up to it and at least be as high as the existing wall so it could be flashed, so the runoff from the hillside to the east, the adjoining hillside, doesn't run between the two walls and create a problem, a structural problem. So if a 8-inch concrete wall was built inside the existing 15-inch retaining wall, there would be 8 inches of clearance between the new office corner wall and the property line at that point, and obviously more as you continue towards Lakeview Avenue. As far as the public comments, I do not have the minutes, as Chairman Clementi stated. I did write down a few notes, and it seemed that the main comment was they felt it was a residential zone. However, I am located, the property is located in a B15 zone, and all the properties from which the comments were made are also within the B15 zone. There was also a comment about noise at bad hours, and I am sure the town of Brunswick has regulated business hours for retail, shops, and auto repair. The auto repair would just be for the cars that he is planning on selling, not open to the public. And then there was another concern about the children waiting on the corner for the bus stop, for the bus. And I think that would be more of a site plan issue than a zoning issue. And that's all I have. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or make anything clearer if need be.
Okay, thank you for that presentation, and you might have an opportunity to do that. I was going to ask Attorney Gilchrist, would like to add any thoughts?
Attorney Gilchrist, Mr. Danskin's correct. I did have occasion to talk to Mr. Blandell. He did not forward the updated survey map to me. I received it from the building department, I believe, yesterday or today.
Today.
The issue was a plot plan that had an existing structure. The foundation, it is a structure that's existing on the lot that is encroaching. And at the last meeting during the public hearing, I'm not sure there was a determination made as to whether the new structure would utilize the foundation, the existing foundation wall, whether there be a new foundation wall inside. And just for clarity in the record, Mr. Blandell did inform me that the new structure would be built entirely inside of the existing foundation wall. So I guess the first question for Mr. Danskin is, can you explain how the new foundation in that relevant portion of the lot would work in relation to the existing foundation wall in that location?
Well, it would be completely inside, as Mark Danskin. It would be completely inside, as Mr. Blendell said, and that would alleviate any new encroachment, because the wall, the existing concrete wall, is 15 inches wide.
Mm-hmm.
And if I build inside that and go flush to it, regardless of the thickness of my wall, I will be 8 inches from the property line within my boundary.
So again, to make it clear factually on the record, the new foundation would be flush up against the existing foundation wall in that location. And you talked about flashing that would need to be installed between the two so that that didn't result in any kind of water infiltration problem. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. What I would advise the board, and you've done this on your previous analysis for area variance requests, is clearly one of the factors for you to determine, for you to deliberate, is whether the proposed area variance would create a detriment to the neighboring properties, not necessarily produce a change in the character of the area, but whether the proposed variance would create a detriment to nearby properties. When looking at the updated survey map received today, new footnote or note 6, it does indicate that there is an existing encroachment. Mr. Danskin's confirmed that on the record. The proposed new foundation wall would be flush up against that existing structure. And I'm going to defer both to the building department as well as possibly to Mr. Shover on these issues, but the construction in that area of a new building, a new structure, in relation to the existing foundation wall, which I think appropriately characterized on the record is not a retaining wall. I believe its original use was as a foundation wall, and we did hear public comments about what would happen if there were any impact to that wall. Does it function as a retaining wall? What's its use? What's its ability to function as a retaining wall? Given the slope there and given the proposed construction, I just want to make sure that the zoning board has adequate information in front of it to deliberate and determine that element of whether the placing a building in that location and constructing a building in a location requested with the area variance requests would or would not create a detriment to nearby properties in relation to that slope and that existing foundation. Whether it serves as a retaining wall or not, I don't know. And on that issue, it is, in my mind, a potential public safety issue. I think the board would need to have adequate proof in front of it to render that determination. Again, I'll defer to the building department and most likely Mr. Shover on that issue. But when reviewing the updated survey map, which confirmed the encroachment and added note 6 as to how the retaining wall, the existing foundation wall would remain, and that a new foundation would be poured, and we've learned tonight, adjacent to that, how the board can make a determination as to whether this proposal would result in a detriment to nearby property. So if the building department can weigh in on that issue and maybe get some thoughts from Mr. Shover. And before you do that, we certainly raised the issue last month about the encroachment because it was not clear on the record to me at that time whether the new building would utilize in whole or in part that existing foundation. And with the record proof that the foundation was an encroachment onto the adjoining properties, which has now been confirmed through an updated survey, that a zoning board in general does not have the jurisdiction to grant a variance that would result in an encroachment on adjacent property. That was clear. I presume that when the updated survey was completed, Mr. Blandell called me and said the new foundation would be entirely inside because absent pouring a new foundation and using the existing foundation wall would present the legal issue which I raised, which is a zoning board is without jurisdiction to grant an area variance that would result in an encroachment. But by addressing that issue by saying we'll pour a new 8-inch wide foundation within and adjacent to the existing foundation in that location on the lot, may address one issue, but I think it creates another issue, and that is putting a building in that location with the construction as proposed, whether that would create a detriment to offsite property. So if the building department could weigh in, and then possibly Mr. Shover.
This is Chuck from the building department. I am not quite certain what I'm weighing in here as regarding a detriment to other properties. If we feel,
Attorney Gilchrist here, if I can weigh in and be very direct on this issue, what this zoning board needs to consider is whether putting a building, constructing a building in that location, and that would be allowed if you grant an area variance for that location, will not result in any failure of that existing foundation wall, any part of that bank coming down, creating a safety issue for any worker or occupant of that building. That's the direct issue. And that's the issue I'm very concerned about from a safety standpoint, because this board will be weighing in on the issue of whether allowing a building in that location, which you would do if you grant the area variance, would result in a detriment to nearby property. The nearby property detriment is the slope failing, creating a detriment to that adjacent property in terms of stability, and also to any occupant of the building or worker in that location. I want the record clear on that. I think we should have appropriate engineering opinion on that before this board acts. I do not want this board in a position of approving an area variance without that evidence in the record, and that there be a safety issue where there's a slope failure or a wall failure. And I would remind the board that this is not simply an issue that's kind of theoretical. Recall the Stewarts at the base of Hoosick Street constructed a fairly substantial wall that collapsed during construction. And thank God no one was injured. I do not want this board placed in that position without adequate proof in the record. This was a legal issue, and now it's become a technical engineering issue with the proposal of constructing inside of that retaining wall. And I'd like the board to have adequate information on that. If the building department doesn't have that information, do you have any thoughts on this, Member Shover?
Member Shover, I think at our last meeting, we actually asked for that opinion from a professional engineer, stating exactly those facts. How is this wall going to be built? Is it going to, how's the runoff? How is it going to stabilize the slope? Is the slope going to come down? This wall is right on the property line or over the property line, and it's on a hill.
This is Chuck from the building department. Thanks for clarifying that for me, Andy. And I understand where you're coming from now. The design of the two right angles, I believe, is what creates the structural integrity to be for that to be used. As for the quality of the concrete, we certainly can't judge that. There's many things about that we can't judge, and I think a engineering stamp would be advisable for this. PE should look at it and confirm the ability to hold that back. It certainly is has worked in the past. It is working now. Will it work in the future? That's the question. Now, setting an 8-inch wall inside of that, you're just going to be using thunderbolts on one side of a form to set in there. I believe, if necessary, you would be able to put in a pilaster. It also create more retaining force on that. But again, that is for a PED. It's to decide.
So Attorney Gilchrist, your emphasis on safety is duly noted. The board has to its benefit the services of LaBerge Engineering. Would it be appropriate for the board to contract them for a consultation?
Attorney Gilchrist here. What I would suggest, if the board's inclined to move in that direction, only to review any engineering plan that was submitted by the applicant. The zoning board would not retain an engineer to render an opinion on that, as there's no engineering data in front of the board at this point, that there's no plans to review. Certainly the board can retain a review engineer once the plans are submitted, but certainly not to initially design or opine on that. And I will also add for the record that the transcripts for these meetings that are being held remotely under the governor's executive orders are not, as you know, the standard minutes. They are a word-for-word transcript. The zoning board meeting from May was just completed. I reviewed that transcript. It should be going out tomorrow to the members. Just note, it's substantial. It's approaching 35 to 40 single-space pages in length. The June meeting was 3.5 hours. That's currently in production. That's likely to be well beyond that. And that's the base for the unfortunate time delay in getting the actual transcripts out. Unlike our in-person meetings where minutes are prepared, the governor's executive order did require a word-for-word transcript, so they are taking a bit longer to prepare.
That's quite a challenging task. We appreciate the hard work that your office is doing on that. Okay. So then going forward, would we ask our consulting engineer to review the application materials at this time, or are there other materials that we would want the applicant to submit to the zoning board?
Attorney Gilchrist here. What I would suggest is two things, at least. One is the applicant will need to submit information that it thinks addresses that issue about the retaining wall, the proposed construction, and the slope issues and the safety issues that have been discussed tonight. If the board's inclined to retain a review engineer on that issue, then what our zoning law provides for is that the review engineer, and yes, you have used LaBerge engineers in the past, you're currently using them on some applications. They would prepare an estimate, and the applicant would fund an escrow for the payment of those engineering review costs. If that's what the board would like to do, you have every ability to go in that direction and indicate you do want to retain a review engineer and request that the review engineer put together a proposed estimate for review.
Mm-hmm. Is there any discussion by the zoning board members on the issue of asking the applicant to submit?
Member Shover again, as Mr. Gilchrist said that we're still waiting on the formal comment letter from the applicant from the public hearing, which we haven't received, and doesn't sound we're going to receive it in a short period of time.
To your point that we have time to take on this, or what is your point?
My point is that in every other public hearing we've had comments, the applicant has responded to those comments in writing for the board to review, and we haven't seen any for this. And there was quite a few public comments, if I remember correctly, at the last board meeting.
Mark Danskin. I was afraid to address the public comments in the sense that I did not know if I had them all, if I had the names correct and whatnot, and didn't realize that the minutes were a word. I thought they were minutes. I didn't realize they were a word by word, and they took longer than the actual time between meetings to get out.
Attorney Gilchrist here. And Mark, you're correct that for the zoning board members, that shouldn't be viewed as a delay by the applicant. Absolutely not.
Right.
These are unusual circumstances where it's taken a considerable amount of time to put the minutes together. And I would concur with Mr. Danskin that he would want that complete list so that the written response was complete and it was accurate in terms of names, addresses, and responding to comments. So that shouldn't be viewed as a delay by the applicant. If anything, it's just caused by the circumstances of these remote meetings and the governor's executive order requirements.
Right, certainly. Right, it's not the responsibility of the applicant right now. Sure, we understand that. So,
Member Shover, I would agree with that.
pardon me?
I would agree with that, Member Shover.
Right. Chairperson Clementi. So, Member Shover, to your point, are you saying that the board should wait for the response to the public comments from the applicant before asking the applicant to submit comments that addresses the retaining wall issue?
Member Shover, no, I don't want to hold the project up. I'm concerned of the safety of this wall, of the foundation, how it's going to be built, any retaining wall issues. If those issues could be addressed, by a professional engineer, they can move forward while we're waiting for the responses.
Mark Danskin, if I could, I felt like member Stanwyck was concerned about the board addressing site plan issues as opposed to the zoning issues at the last meeting, and I really didn't get the message that the engineer report was a requirement. I thought it was more a counsel as to the encroachment.
Right, so it hasn't been a requirement yet.
And if the board feels it is, I have no problem with it. I just don't want them to think that I didn't supply. I didn't really think the board asked for an engineer's report yet.
You're correct.
Yep, and Attorney Gilchrist weighing in as well. Mr. Danskin, I would concur with that. Again, do not have any presumption against the applicant on that. My recollection is it was certainly a legal issue that was raised because it was not clear on the record whether the existing foundation would be used or not. And it was the legal issue of granting a variance that would incorporate and grant a variance resulting in an encroachment on an adjacent property. That's been addressed now. I don't view this as much as a legal issue, but by building the wall inside of the existing foundation, adjacent to it, identifying its use as keeping back the slope, those have raised certain technical issues. So I agree with Mr. Danskin. What was originally raised as a legal issue has become a technical or engineering issue relevant to that one factor to consider by the board, which is would placing a building in that location, if allowed by the area variance, create a detriment to nearby properties?
Mark Danskin. Andrew, you were saying that you had I'm sorry, Attorney Gilchrist, you were saying that you had two issues. Perhaps the first was the engineering report, and I didn't catch the second one. Or recommendations to the board, perhaps?
Well, the second one it dealt with retaining a review engineer, and that if you're
Oh,
going to go in
okay.
that direction, yeah, you need to have that engineer prepare an estimate and create an escrow.
No problem. Thank you. Mark Danskin again. I agree with the board. If they would like an engineer's report stating that, you know, the wall will be safe, construction, you know, practices can be, you know, submitted, and everything will be good, then I'm all for that. I don't want anybody getting hurt, you know. I do have to say that the uphill slope, though, is not on our property. So I don't know. I guess he'll deal with that in his report.
Right. So then, as a board, we would ask the applicant to put money into escrow for a review engineer to make an estimate for the review? Is that?
Attorney Gilchrist, the procedure, if you do want to retain a review engineer, would be to have a motion to retain an engineering firm and request that the engineering firm put together an estimate of services so that the applicant would then fund an escrow account with the town.
Mm-hmm.
And that's provided in the Brunswick zoning law.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Danskin, do they estimate after the report, Andrew, or do they estimate before the report is submitted?
Attorney Gilchrist, Mr. Danskin, I think in this case, knowing what the issue is, like proceeding on the dual tracks at the same time to save some time on the review, I think an engineer could prepare an estimate on reviewing an engineering report on that wall and get that done in short order.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I'd like to make that motion. Make like the motion to retain an engineering firm to estimate the services and to apply a fund to an escrow account for the applicant to fund that escrow account.
Attorney Gilchrist here, and more direct, you should identify the firm that you do want to retain.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So LaBerge has been our consulting engineer in the past. And, is there any discussion by the zoning board members on that motion? Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
This is Member Kern. Do we have to put in an official request to the applicant for the engineered plan?
Attorney Gilchrist here, my advice on that is you've discussed that issue, you've requested that information as a board from the applicant already, so that's already made part of the record. The formal motion, though, is required to retain a review engineer, to retain LaBerge as review engineers on the application.
Okay, thank you. I'm in favor of that motion, or I second that motion.
Thank you very much. We'll do a roll call vote on the motion to retain an engineering firm. Services, the applicant would fund an escrow account to pay for those services. The engineering firm would be LaBerge. Member Schmidt?
Member Schmidt, aye.
Member Shover?
Member Shover, aye.
Member Curran?
Member Curran, aye.
Member Charette?
Aye.
And thank you. And Chairperson Clementi, aye. So motion carried. Are there any questions by the applicant? Requests by the board?
Yeah, I have a question. The engineering work will be done outside my office. I'm hoping we can do it for the next meeting. If I could get on the agenda for the next meeting and contact Chuck if the information isn't going to be available. That as far as the engineering report and the response to the minutes, if I could get on the agenda, but if I don't have the minutes to respond, I would obviously get off, you know.
Sure. So the next time the zoning board meets is August 17th.
Okay.
So I have a question for the building department or perhaps Attorney Gilchrist. Applicant received something in the mail with that request that by the zoning board to retain the engineering firm?
I'll weigh in on that, Attorney Gilchrist. What will happen is we'll put together information, send that over to LaBerge Engineers with a scope of work to review an engineering report to be submitted on the foundation wall in that section of the plot plan, and request that an estimate be put together for review engineering services. And then a letter will go to the applicant identifying the escrow amount that's required. And I'll coordinate with the building department on that.
Thank you.
Mark Danskin, if I may. Attorney Gilchrist, as I convey this information to my client to get the engineer, the issues are the retaining wall, the proposed wall, and the upslope, and their ability not to fail, correct? It's the retaining wall, the proposed wall, and the upslope issue, right? So that's what we're looking for the report.
Right, Attorney Gilchrist, I think that's correct. Again, I'll
Okay.
ask Mr. Shover on the record, though, to weigh in and make sure that was accurately described.
That sounds accurately described.
That sound good?
Correct.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This application will be put on the agenda for August.
Very
Member
good.
Schmidt, I have a question before we leave this.
Of course.
Question for the building department. That 8 inches separation between the foundation and the property line, will that be wide enough so that the overhang on a roof won't encroach on the neighbor's property?
This is Chuck from the building department, and when you add the 15-inch wall plus the 8-inch new wall thickness, you'll come up with 23 inches. You have an existing 7-inch encroachment. So you will be able to set your box header right up on the edge of the new wall and be able to have an 8-inch overhang. If you want more of an overhang, you're just going to have to pour a wider wall. The point, and I don't think this can be stressed enough from a construction standpoint, is you've got to flash that area in there good, because if you get water between those two pores, the freezing of it will just force those two walls apart. So that's critical.
Thank you. Okay. So moving on to our next item on our agenda, Sky Towers. Mr. Brennan, thank you for joining us tonight.
Dave Brennan speaking. Thank you.
Would you like to present to the board your information?
Dave Brennan speaking. Yes, I would. So I last appeared in front of the zoning board on this project on June 15th, at which time we reviewed together our response to the public hearing comments. And at that time, that response included a number of simulations of the proposed tower, including a number of those where it is proposed as a stealth monopine tree. We made a similar presentation at the planning board meeting, and we received some comments from the planning board. Primarily, there was a concern that between your board and the planning board that the branching on the proposed stealth monopine in some of the views was not satisfactory. It didn't go all the way down the tree, so you basically saw what would be the pole of the monopole or the trunk without branching on it. And we were also asked, I believe, by the planning board for some additional information on our appraisal report. So by letter dated July 13, a week ago Monday, we submitted a revised set of simulations, which would be what I would primarily like to go through with the board this evening and see if we can bring those up. As Mr. Polito is looking for those, Dave Brennan continuing. We also do have a revised appraisal report that is an appraisal of a study conducted of certain tower locations within the Capital District, roughly defined as Albany, Rensselaer, Saratoga, and Washington counties, with some before and after property values before and after a cell tower went up. And that report's being finalized and will be submitted this week for review by the various boards and the board's consultants. We did meet via Zoom last Thursday with the planning board and went through these simulations again. And at that time, I think, if I recall correctly, Mr. Gilchrist had to hop off the call for another matter, but we discussed also an extension of the shot clock letter. The time within which to make a decision was coming due at the end of the month, and we wanted to talk about with the boards an extension of that through the end of August, because certainly we're not in a position to ask for nor make any determinations this evening. So I just take a breath and see if Mr. Polito has that July 13th letter that we could put up.
I'm looking for it now, so give me a couple of seconds here.
Okay. Dave Brennan speaking. Maybe Mr. Gilchrist, if we could talk, we were talking with the planning board on Thursday, going through the simulations also about agreeing to extend the shot clock so the boards have additional time. And then also, we also discussed that the next steps, the planning board some time ago took lead agency status for seeker on this matter. And so before the zoning board could act, the planning board actually has to consider seeker and make a determination. And so that's something we needed to work out the logistics of. And if we could talk to that, that would be helpful as well.
Thank you, Attorney Gilchrist. For the zoning board members, we have in the past on this application extended the federal shot clock, the time frame under federal law within which to make a determination on the application, or more, I think accurately stated, the time that the applicant could go to court to compel a determination. And we've extended that date. The town's working through the application materials, I think in good coordination with the applicant. There is a request to extend that shot clock to the end of August. Certainly the planning board was in favor of doing that. It's certainly advisable to do that as we work through the visual simulation review, as well as the property value impact assessment. Procedurally, how we've done that in the past is that the planning board chair and the zoning board chair have authorized me to execute the extension of the shot clock, and I propose, if the zoning board's inclined to do that, to authorize me to do that as well. And then procedurally, Mr. Brennan's correct, the planning board did take seeker lead agency. So in terms of procedure, when the boards are ready to act on this, the first step would be for the planning board to make its seeker determination. Once that is completed, that would legally allow the zoning board to address and determine the use variance application. In the event the zoning board does grant the use variance, then the planning board would proceed to act upon the special use permit and site plan applications. So one of the things for the board to consider tonight is authorizing me, not through formal motion, but principally through the zoning board chair, to extend the shot clock.
Great.
This is Pat Polito. Dave, I got it up. I also gave you control of my screen.
Dave Brennan speaking. Wonderful. Thank you.
This is Chairperson Clementi, so I would agree to do that, to authorize Attorney Gilchrist to allow the shot clock to be extended into August. Are there any other conversations or discussions by the zoning board members on that point? Like that, we have done that a few times now, and the planning board has also extended it. I don't see any reason why we would not.
Dave Brennan speaking. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Mr. Polito has up my July 13th letter, which was sent around to the board members. And maybe before I go through that, just on the procedural topics, to defer back to Mr. Gilchrist. But so the next step would be the planning board having to tackle a secret determination. And then I would like to point out on one topic related to the zoning board's jurisdiction on activities and actions, which is the two options where the tower is located, where they are, the proposed tower would be short enough to stealth it as a monopine tree. Those two locations, if you would recall, are locations where we are not 750 feet away from a residence, a residential structure. And according to your zoning law, it's set up that there's a 750-foot setback from a residential structure, not from the property line, but the structure. And so the location that is requires a 150-foot tall tower is the location that maintains that 750-foot setback, but because of the topography on this property requires a structure of 150 feet in height. And going back to the earliest days, we proposed a location that is closer to the residential structures to take advantage of topography. It gets it down to an 80-foot structure, but correspondingly, because it doesn't meet that, it needs both a use variance, because basically anything in the, amongst other things, in the agricultural overlay in a number of the residential districts requires a use variance. It would also require an area variance for the setback. And so we're not obviously on that exact topic tonight, but I just wanted to, it was a good time to mention that point. But going past seeker, if the planning board issues a negative declaration, I guess my next question would be is if there's a procedure, maybe I can take this up with Mr. Gilchrist offline, about whether both boards would meet jointly like you did for the public hearing, or if it would be then sequentially we would go first to the zoning board for variances and then go back to the planning board for the I think it's both a special use permit, I apologize, and site plan review.
Attorney Gilchrist, I'd like to have that discussion with Mr. Brennan going forward offline, just on those procedural issues. And we can report back to the zoning board.
Okay, Dave Brennan, thank you. I appreciate that. And so on your screen in front of you, Mr. Polito's handed me control so I can scroll through. This is my July 13th, 2020 letter. What has happened is our consultant Tectonic Engineers has gone back out and flown a balloon at two locations. One of them is the orange dot entitled option 1. That is one of the alternatives that has been on the table since the beginning of this project. Slightly southwest of that is option 2, a red dot, which will be a red balloon. That was an alternative that we recently proposed over the spring that is also towards the top of the hill. but requires a 90-foot option. And what we had done is we had done simulations when we had flown the balloon in the fall. We had flown it at option 1, but option 2 had not been identified yet. So we went back out and flew a balloon at both of these locations. And then the blue dots around the clock, starting here on Creek Road 1, 2, 3, and 4, and going all the way around, are the locations from which photos were taken. And then simulations were then based upon those photographs. And so just very briefly, as we go through photos 1, 2, 3, and 4 down here, these are Creek Road. 4 is the corner of Creek Road in Menemsha. 5 is on Menemsha. 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all on Sand Cherry Drive. Sand Cherry Hill Lane, excuse me, I just mixed that one up. Location 20 is the back of the O'Brien residence. That was a photograph that was taken during the original balloon fly. And so we re-simmed it with the branches all the way down so you can see what that looks like. Then excuse me, just clicked out of it. 10 and 11 are on Coalhammer Ave. 21 is the back of the property owned by Mr. Collins, and that's from his backyard. So we rescind that one, showing the branching going all the way down. And then 12 and 13 are on Golden Eagle Court, and 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 are all on Eagle Ridge Drive. And so now I'll scroll through the photos. I won't belabor them unless you interrupt and ask me to focus on something. I'll explain what they are. The board has received these, and I don't want to unduly dwell on these at this point, but I'll just go through the high points. So, excuse me. So this is from Crick Road. We're looking up and we're seeing this is the 90-foot balloon, which is red. We didn't do a simulation of each of these because of the distance when we provided some previous sims, but this is photo 2. Again, the red balloon's visible in the distance. And then here's a simulation of what the top of the tree would look like in the distance at the top of the knoll. Photo 3 is, again, from Crick Road. It's in the, again, along the middle of it. We're not quite to the corner of Menemsha yet. This is the orange balloon, so this is the 80-foot location. This is photo 4 is at the corner of Menemsha Lane and Crick. You can see this is the orange balloon at 80. You can kind of make it out on the point of the cursor, depending on your resolution. This is further up along Menemsha. The balloon is just tipping over the tops of the trees. And so if we were to sim it, you'd just basically see a little bit something on the point of the cursor. Coming down, we're now on Sand Cherry Hill Lane and photograph 6, which is at the top, looking basically straight back. The balloons are not visible through the trees. And again, going down the hill a little bit, looking through the trees, the balloons are not visible. Going further down Sand Cherry Hill Lane, again, the balloons are not visible above the trees. And the same with photo 9. I will show you the visibility from the one backyard when we get to that's photo 20. Photo 10 and 11 are from Coalhammer Avenue. Again, the balloon is not visible from the road itself. And if you recall the original view shed, the balloons were visible from the Collins property, but not from the other location further to the east, where we went and took pictures from their backyard. So now we're moving over to Golden Eagle Court. This is looking back in the field, and the balloons are not visible from this location in front of numbers 1 and 3 Golden Eagle Court. At in front of number 4 Golden Eagle Court, you can see this is the red balloon at 90. You can see it in the background. And what we do in the next slide is we do a simulation, so you'll see that this is what the tree would look like as compared to the trees in the backyard and the lot line. This is now on Eagle Ridge Drive. This is the orange balloon, so this is the 80-foot, the shorter of the two in the back. And then here's what the simulation looks like. In photo 15, this is the red balloon at 90 showing up. And then this is a simulation in the back. This is a good time to stop possibly. And I was asked point blank by the chair of the planning board on Thursday what was my thought as to which of these was the better of the two alternatives. And in my estimation, option 1, the orange balloon, as you'll see, is tucked away in the corner and is not as directly in the backyards of these. The tree line is thicker, and so that was my response to that question. This is in front of 15 Eagle Ridge Drive. The red balloon again is popping up above the top of the house, and the simulation behind. This is in front of 15 Eagle Ridge Drive. I believe this is it was Todd and I think Lisa McDonald is the wife's name. They spoke at the public hearing. This is the orange balloon as you look back across their yard. And then this is what the simulation, what the simulation would look like in the back. This is in front of 13 Eagle Ridge Drive, the orange balloon, another view of it, and then the simulation. And this is in front of 13 Eagle Ridge Drive. This is the red balloon showing up in the background, and then the simulation behind the trees. This is one of the photographs. You'll see the foliage now changes. This is the photograph that was taken in the fall with the original balloon fly that occurred. This is the 150-foot tall green tower that we're not focused on. This is the orange balloon at the 80-foot location. This is in the backyard of 10 San Cherry Hill Lane, the O'Brien property. And so we had previously simmed this, and the branches kind of went down to about where the cursor is, and it basically showed a thick trunk all the way down. So we went back, and we're now proposing to do branching all the way down to about 10 or 15 feet above ground level to make it look like a tree all the way down. I was asked at the planning board meeting last week whether the height was accurate. The height is to scale, the width is to scale. And we actually went and submitted all these simulations to the company that manufactures the stealth branching, the tower, to make sure that it was accurate as to what they would physically manufacture. So we didn't show you one thing that was simmed and something else that was built. This property is off of Coalhammer. This is the Collins property. Mr. Collins spoke at the public hearing. This again is the 150-foot location. This is the 80-foot location. Previously, we hadn't shown the branches all the way down, so we're now revising it to show branching all the way down to the base. And with that, Mr. Polito, I'm done scrolling through on your screen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for leading us through those photographs. Mm-hmm. So we extended the shot clock. Is there any other business like that we need to do at this meeting?
Attorney Gilchrist, not at this meeting. The extension of the shot clock will put this through the end of August. It would certainly be advisable for the board to consider placing this on your August 17 agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Brennan speaking. I appreciate that. I would say procedurally, there's no other business. If any of the board members are in a position to offer any opinions as to the various locations. During the process, we had offered and shown a 240-foot tower that required lighting, which I think was universally viewed as a non-starter. And so we were with the 80-foot location that's still on the screen, the 150-foot location, which does not lend itself to being disguised as a tree, which would be a straight monopole tower. And so I thought the preference was drifting towards a stealth tree, and then we had shown 2 locations. And so excuse me, one of the things that ultimately we have to do is look towards the board if there is a preferred alternative. There is some additional analysis that has to be done. For example, one that I think of off the top of my head is we have not submitted noise data. There was some comments at the public hearing about the generators. As you would recall, we're not running this off of a generator. There's an emergency backup generator if the power goes out for an extended period of time to keep the phone service working. But even in that rare circumstance, we still submit a noise generation letter showing that at the property line we're not exceeding, creating a significant noise problem. And we haven't done that report yet because we basically, at one point, we basically have always had 3 different alternatives in play. And so the one thing we are looking to do, if possible, is to see if there's any preference towards any of them or to rule anything out.
Mm-hmm. I just remember the first balloon fly, there are always options that are better for some people and worse for others. Right.
And Attorney Gilchrist here as well. I just remind the board that this is an application that for which you have retained LaBerge engineers for review and assistance on the review of the variance applications, as well as the planning board's review of the special use permit and site plan. Ron LaBerge is present, so if you have any questions for your review engineer, he's available.
Welcome, Ron.
Evening, everybody.
Mr. Brennan, is there an example of a monopine that's been branched all the way down to the ground in the Capital District?
Dave Brennan speaking. I will have to see if I can find one and email that to you. There's one near that was raised by planning board member Tarbox near Salty's Pub in the town of Half Moon between Route 9 and I don't know if it's Guide Board Road. I forget what the cross street is, but there's it's one on a commercial property, and the branching goes fairly far down that one because it's basically the facility is not fully hidden, where sometimes these are placed with trees all the way around them. You don't have to branch all the way down. That one has branching fairly far down. There's another one that's brand new that's in Clifton Park, but I think that one was largely surrounded by trees, so the branching doesn't go quite as nearly down. But I think probably the one by Salty's Pub, I could get you the exact address for that one. That's a tower that my office did the zoning approval on, and I have to think it goes back to about 2009 or 10. And so it's not the most current iteration of what one of these looks like. Then it was also recently approved by the Half Moon Planning Board for another carrier to extend the height of it. But I think the branching on that one goes pretty far down.
Thank you. Mr. LaBerge, are there any comments that you would like to add at this time?
At this time, really, it's location is a visual determination. I did submit a comment letter a while back on the applicant's responses to the public comment. I don't know if the board had any questions on any of those. I'd be happy to answer those. But I really don't have any other comments at this time.
Dave Brennan speaking. I don't know, could everyone hear Mr. LaBerge or not? I couldn't hear most of what he was saying.
It was cutting out. If you could kindly repeat that, please.
I hope I can be as brilliant as I sounded the first time. The multiple issues, obviously. One is location, and that really comes down to the visual aesthetics of this project. Somewhat of a subjective opinion that the board will have to make. I also did prepare a response to comment, the public comment by the applicant, and if the board has any questions on those, we'll be happy to try to clarify them. But other than that, I don't have any other additional comments. That work? That didn't work, did it?
Dave Brennan, I could hear it better, but you were still fading out a little bit at points.
Let's try this one more time. Is that clear? Is it better anyway? Okay. So the location aspect is really driven by the aesthetics on this project, which is subjective determination that the zoning board is going to have to make. We did provide a comment letter about a month ago in regard to the applicant's response to the public comments. And that was also the letter to talk about submitting some additional information in terms of the appraisal data and the sound generation of the generators. So, but other than that, unless there's questions on those responses or comments on the responses, I don't have anything further at this time.
Yeah, thank you.
Third time's the charm.
All right. Are there any other questions for Mr. LaBerge from any of the zoning board members at this time? Okay. Yeah, again, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Mr. Brennan will be on the agenda for August 17th. At that time, we may have the report for the appraisal report. That will help. And if there are any other questions at that time, we'll bring them up to you at that meeting. Is there anything else, Attorney Gilchrist, that I'm missing, or we're okay with this application right now?
Attorney Gilchrist, procedurally, there's nothing. What the zoning board members should do in relation particularly to your review of the additional photo simulations submitted by the applicant is start assessing, as Mr. LaBerge said, pretty much from a location and a visual assessment issue, if there's any preferred location, and be prepared to deliberate on that issue, because as Mr. Brennan said, once the zoning board may want to focus in on a particular location, the supplemental sound data can be prepared and submitted.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Well, if there are no further comments from the zoning board members. I'd like to thank Mr. Brennan for coming tonight.
Dave Brennan speaking. Thank you very much for your time this evening, and I look forward to chatting with you in August.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Up to that point, thank you. All right. All right. So right now what we're going to do is we have 4 new applications that we're going to go through. We're going to assess their completeness for the purpose of holding a public hearing. And what we'll do is kind of if you were watching what you've seen earlier, I'll ask the applicants for a little brief overview of their projects. If there are any questions that come up by the zoning board members, we'll have time to ask now, and then more in depth at the public hearing. So what we're going to do is just look at the 4 new applications that are submitted as new business. And let's see. So Pat, I was going to take them as they were submitted to the building department. So that would put us Zwack, Bauer, Chaffee, and Carly and Kohlhammer. And yeah, terrific. We're running along good here. So our first new application for tonight is by Mr. Zwack for property at 6 Genesee Street. And let's see what's going on here. The applicant would like to replace an existing detached garage. The zoning district is R9. They're looking for a rear setback variance and a side setback variance. So Mr. John Zwack, if you're with us, welcome. And if you could kindly present a brief overview of the project, that would be terrific. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. This is John Zwack from 6 Genesee Street. So brief overview of this is I have a current existing detached garage located on the property at the end of my driveway. It is at an angle to the property line, so actually the back left-hand corner looking from the road is about 3/4 of an inch from the property line. So what I'm looking at doing is demolishing this building, rotating it into the property so that it's a parallel to the property line, increasing that to just under 3 feet, and making the garage 4 feet wider in width going into my property line. It's going to be the same length and the same height as the current existing garage.
Oh, I'm sorry, I unmuted myself. Mr. Zwack, is there an existing detached garage on the property now?
Yes, it's the garage is still there. It was there when we purchased the home about 3 years ago. So we have not done anything with it. It's in a little bit of disarray from the previous owners not managing it correctly. So it is beginning to fall down. So we like to remove it before there's an issue of it falling into the neighbor's property.
Sure, I understand the request. I have a question for the building department, Mr. Golden. Just to clarify the required and proposed values in the application. So the rear setback, 20 is required, 20 feet is required. Let's see, I have that right. And no, let's see, hang on for a second, pardon me. Okay, so the right side setback, 10 is required and 2.66 is proposed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. That's right. And then the rear. Okay. And then the rear setback. I have two different sets of values here. Rear setback is 10.4 feet, required is 20 feet.
This is Chuck from the building department. That is correct.
That is correct, okay. So it's just different from the application. That's why I brought it up. This is a very well put together application with the photos, the drawings of the shed, the survey notes. I want to thank the building department and the applicant for putting together such a well done application. Are there any questions at this time by any of the zoning board members for the applicant?
Member Shover, I have none.
Okay. Yeah.
Member Curran, I have none.
All right.
Member Shred, I have none.
All right. Well, thank you for all weighing in. To the applicant, Mr. Zwack, do you grant permission to the zoning board members to have an on-site look at this proposed project?
Yes, that would not be a problem. Sorry, this is John Zwack again. Yeah, I would not have a problem with any members of the zoning board doing a on-site visit ahead of time.
Okay, Mr. Zwack, thank you very much. This is Chairperson Clementi. So it looks like that this application is in order for a purpose of a public hearing. The Zoning Board of Appeals will meet again in August, Monday, August 17th. I'll just need a little guidance for someone who has a scorecard in regards to the previous older applications that we were looking at, the Rashid and Blue Sky Towers. Should the Zwack application go before them and we schedule this for 6 o'clock on August 17th, or should we address the concerns of the older applicants, Rashid, Blue Sky Towers? Anybody want to weigh in?
This is Member Charette. I would say get the non-controversial stuff out of the way before we go to the controversial stuff. I think that, you know, we can get through this pretty quickly.
I can tell you are a new member because it's so hard to determine what will be controversial and what will not be controversial. But regardless, thank you for weighing in. Because what I would like to do is, I guess, take these new applications first, set the public hearings for starting at 6 o'clock and following with the other 3 applications if they deemed complete. And from there, if anybody has any contrary opinion to that.
Attorney Gilchrist weighing in. That has been, Chairperson Clementi, your practice in the past to schedule the public hearings first and then move on to pending old business.
Sounds good. So, Mr. Zwack, you're on for 6 o'clock on August 17th.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And most likely it will be on this platform, the main platform. So you've done it successfully. I'm sure we'll continue to have a successful hearing. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next up, we have an application. Bauer for 136 Mountain View Avenue. This application is like to construct a deck onto an existing non-conforming structure. Hello, Ms. Bauer. Would you like to give us a brief overview of your project?
I'm trying to put a deck on the back of the house.
Terrific. All right. And it looks like you're looking for three variances of front yard, because it's a corner lot, 2 front yards, and a left side yard. Let's see. And then this question is for Mr. Golden at the building department. Again, just to line up required and proposed values.
This is Chuck from the building department. It was not put down as a required value because I think the proposed value was changed to existing. The area in which the deck is going to be installed actually does not require a variance, but this is just another one of the homes in the Mountain View area which is existing non-conforming, and to be able to do anything with it, you need to get it into conformance. So, for example, the front setback is supposed to be 30 feet from the principal road, Mountain View Ave, and it's 27.8. As you had noted previously, the front setbacks, the Sanford Road setback is 20'8", and again that has to be 30, and then the left side setback is the worst one for offensive. That is supposed to be 15, and that is actually only 4.5.
This is Attorney Gilchrist. Just to focus the board, the Brunswick zoning, because of the Brunswick zoning law setback requirements that the building department just reviewed, this is considered a non-conforming structure. It's existing and it's protected. It can be maintained, but it is non-conforming. In order to alter, extend, or enlarge a non-conforming structure, and this deck would be considered that, an area variance is required. The Brunswick zoning law currently provides that non-conforming structures cannot be altered, expanded, or extended, and accordingly, the area variance procedure is used to have any additions, including decks, put onto these structures. So that's the variance in front of you, is to allow the alteration, expansion, or extension of a non-conforming structure.
Thank you for that clarification. All right. And then Ms. Bauer, do you give permission to the zoning board members to have an on-site visit of the project?
Sure.
Great. All right. Great. So the application looks complete. For the purpose of holding a public hearing at our next Zoning Board of Appeals meeting in August, Monday, August 17th, and we'll schedule this for 6:15.
So that means we can't finish the deck?
At this point, we are waiting for the area variance to be granted in order for the deck to be finished. Mr. Golden, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
That is about it, Chairman Clementi. There is no permit for the deck, and we cannot issue a permit legally until this variance is approved.
So summer will be over before we can build the deck?
Quite possibly. I think you're going to be doing some repairs of the deck as it stands right now because it's not built to code. So we will address that when the permit is issued.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Bauer, thank you. We'll see you in August.
All right.
All right. Good night now.
Good night.
Good night. All right. The third new application for new business is at 116 Woodlawn Court, Julie Chaffee, proposing a 10 by 12 shed for pool supplies as well as lawn and garden equipment. Two variances are being sought, a side yard and a rear yard. Ms. Chaffee, could you kindly present an overview of your project?
Julie, you have to unmute. There you go.
Okay, I got you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Julie Chaffee, 116 Woodlawn Court. I'm looking to put a storage shed approximately 10 by 12 feet in the back left corner of my fully fenced-in backyard.
Great, thank you. And then again, just to look at the required and proposed values. And the application says 6 feet. On the letter, the proposed is 7 in both cases. So I'm just checking on that, Chuck. Is it the 6 feet or the 7 feet? And that's for the side and the rear.
This is Chuck from the building department. The diagram shows 6 foot, but that is actually to the undisturbed soil. In speaking with Ms. Chaffee, the actual building is 1 foot inside of that. So if you look at the drawing, you have a 12 foot by or a 10 foot by 12 foot shed with a disturbed area of 12 foot by 14. So that outer box is actually the disturbed area or where they're going to put in crusher. The actual setback is 7 foot in for both cases. The left setback 7 foot, the rear setback 7 foot.
Great, yeah, thank you for that clarification. So, Julie, do you grant permission to the zoning board members to have an on-site look at the proposed project?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. There are not any other questions or concerns by any of the other zoning board members, then we could put this, looks like it's complete for the purpose of holding a public hearing. We'll put it on August 17th agenda, starting at 6:30.
Excellent, thank you.
Great, we'll see you then. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
All right, good night, bye-bye.
Good night, bye-bye.
And then lastly, we have 18 Coalhammer. And this is an application for a shed in an R15 zoning district, which requires a 60-foot setback from the front, where 44 is proposed. And then also a side setback where it's proposed 5 feet and required 15 feet. Just add that to the application. Is that correct, Mr. Golden, that there are 2 variances being sought?
Excuse me for my unfamiliarity with this one. This was one of the ones that Mike did. It looks like there are 2 variances as stated, 5 foot for the left side setback and the front setback being 44 feet. And Mr. Carley can either confirm or deny this, but the shed will be set back below or behind the front plane of the primary residence. Is that true, Mr. Carley?
This is Mark, 18 Coalhammer. Can you repeat the question? Do you mean the front of the shed will be behind the corner of the foundation?
In line or in or behind the if you could draw a line across the front of the foundation, the accessory structure has to be behind that. So you have to make sure that it is set behind, or no protrusion past flush, we'll put it, than the primary structure.
Okay, yes, yeah, it'll be along the same line or behind it.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Carley, could you kindly present a brief overview of this project?
Certainly, it's a 12 by 10 shed to be used for storing lawnmower, lawn equipment, snow blower. And it's put on the left side of the house.
And to the building department, sometimes we receive in the application information about the structure, the actual shed. So we know that it meets the height requirements. So I see the layout, not necessarily the details about the building itself.
And nor do I. Mr. Carley, do you have a picture or plans for this shed? Is it going to be a pre-built, delivered intact shed, or are you planning on building it yourself?
It's pre-built, being delivered, and I have a picture of it. However, I also have let me, if you don't mind, I could pull up the invoice. It should have the height and everything for you.
Sure, we can wait for that information. Thank you.
And as well as, this is Chuck again from the building department, and please provide that to the building department at your earliest convenience so we can get the copies made and get that out to the members.
Absolutely, will do.
Thank you.
All right, so that's okay. We can move on then. That will be supplied at your earliest convenience to the building department, to pass along to the zoning board members. And then just to help complete the application, the zoning district is R15. So pending that additional information regarding the structure of the shed itself, the application looks complete. We'll awaiting that information, we'll tentatively place this application on Monday, August 17th agenda. And that will put us at 6:45 p.m. So, Carly, how does that sound?
This is Mark Carley, 18 Colhammer. Yes, that sounds great, and I will. I'll get that information over to the building department tomorrow. And I'm sorry, am I supposed to send it to somewhere else as well?
Nope. From there, the building department will distribute it out to the members.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Is there any other business? Then we can roll call an adjournment for the purpose of ending the meeting. I would like
Chairperson Clint, just to go over the schedule.
Oh, sure.
For what we have, as you just noted in most recent, the ZWAC public hearing at 6 p.m., the Bauer public hearing at 6:15, the Chaffee public hearing at 6:30, and the Carley public hearing at 6:45. After that, we will be having the 793 Pauling Avenue and quite possibly, I'm not certain about Blue Sky Tower. And I don't have anything. No, I don't. I don't have anything else, or I haven't heard from any of the people that are still pending. So I guess my question is the Pauling Avenue will be sometime after the public hearings, correct?
Right. We'll take care of the public hearings first.
Okay.
Mhm. Right.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. If there are not any other comments, I make the motion to adjourn to end the meeting. Would a member second?
Member Shover, second.
Thank you. We'll do a roll call for voting. Member Schmidt?
Member Schmidt, aye.
Member Shover?
Member Shover, aye.
Member Curran?
Member Curran, aye.
Member Charette?
Member Charette, aye.
All right, thank you. Motion carried. That concludes our meeting. Thank you, Pat, for acting as our esteemed moderator. Appreciate all your expertise.
Hey, you're welcome. Have a wonderful night, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Attorney Gilchrist. Yes, have a wonderful night, everyone.
You too.
Good night.
You too.
Good night.
Good night.